What the fuck?
For those who remember, around a couple months ago, I did a video on 2 different FNAF VHS series, and boy were they frightening to say the least. I really enjoyed how it took the already dark and disturbing plot lines of the games and somehow made it even worse. It was oddly enough one of the most perfect matches of IP to genre. Who knew Five Nights at Freddy's would work so perfectly in the analog world? This video was initially going to be covering Harmony and Horror Season 2, but unfortunately, the first entry had some complications, so once that gets re-uploaded, I'll be sure to get to it. But another video made by the same creator caught my attention, and it clearly caught a lot of other people's attention as well. Battington's The Horror Attraction. Just by the thumbnail of the behind the scenes video, I can tell this is going to have quite the production behind it. It does appear to be a one-off entry, so I am beyond excited to get into it. But before I let you get too far, just wanted to say if you're new here and enjoy what you're watching, be sure to hit all those neat buttons down below, and I'll also have the community Discord server linked down in the description to talk about all things horror and media related. But anyways, now you can pass through. The Horror Attraction. Our entry begins with a nice little warning for flashing lights, loud noises, and graphic imagery. Perhaps we may need some safety gear for this one. After that, we see an advert for a new Freddy Fazbear themed horror attraction called Fazbear Frights. Is this in the FNAF world based on the restaurant horrors? I feel like that would be wild to take that event and turn it into a ride. But tickets are now available, and I gotta say, it's pretty tempting. After that commercial, we wind up in found footage format, and I am shocked that this is all 3D animated. There are apparently already rumors floating around of a dead body being found the opening day of the ride. Our group consists of Derek, Jessica, Vanessa, and George, and once it's their turn to ride, they find out it's only 3 per cart, leaving George as a solo rider. He's also the lucky last ride of the night. Our ride begins, and at first it seems like those horror rides you'd find at the fair. I gotta say, if I was on this ride, this yellow bear would have ended me.
Yellow bear has been dying to eat you.
It also sounds like, according to the narrator for this ride, there was a moment in 1985 where these killer animatronics roamed free. Whether or not this is just a story, who knows? We get our usual FNAF character jump scares, starting off with Foxy, Bonnie, then Chica. One of the more disturbing scenes looks to be Springtrap in front of a bunch of kids as he holds a knife up behind him. Before we move on to the next stage of the ride, we get our good puppet friend jumping out with the sounds of kids cheering. Once we get to the next set piece, the ride goes through a bit of a malfunction. Isn't this the perfect spot for it to stop working? The lights are all on, and all we can do is sit and wait for the ride to be back up. George ends up stuck here for a bit, but we're able to get a good look at these animatronic designs.
Man, these guys are freaky.
We ended up doing a little time skip, and given what we can see at the top, it took a good 8 minutes before the ride continued onward. Interestingly enough, when we get to our next part of the ride, Springtrap gets officially introduced.
Allow me to introduce to you the Springtrap.
Looks like who I thought was him before was someone else. Also, in a scary turn of events for George, this ride comes with a drop he was certainly not expecting.
No one mentioned a drop. Whoa!
What was even more unexpected is that after the drop, the ride appears to reset.
I'm back in the fucking building again!
And not just the ride, even the time at the top has been reversed. George doesn't come to the conclusion that the ride has been reset, he just believes that rooms have been reused lazily.
Can't just reuse rooms? It's lazy and repetitive.
Everything looks to be the exact same at first, except this time when we get to the section with the kids, our animatronic is no longer there. Uh-oh. We go through the next section, and right at the same spot as last time, the ride breaks down. With way more balls than I do. George winds up outside of the cart looking for some kind of solution, but when the ride starts back up, he hops into the cart and hopes for the best. We arrive back at the drop, and wouldn't you know it, we're repeating the cycle again. At this point, it seems George is hoping it's just a prank, but overall he's getting more frustrated than anything.
No, 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 no! No, no, no. Yeah, okay, I get it. I get it!
Something I just noticed as a matter of fact is that the captions provide a message for George. Turn back. It's not too late. Go back. As expected, the ride breaks down yet again at the same spot. George immediately hops out of the ride and begins to look for an emergency exit. This time when he zooms in on the door behind the animatronics, it slams shut. Someone else must be in here. However, once he walks into the room, he somehow winds up back in the cart at the start of the ride. We quickly cut to the moment the ride always breaks down, and we can see George pacing around trying to rationalize just what could be going on. This time, the ride is broken down for even longer, almost for a whole 20 minutes. We go to look back at the door, and it looks like a friendly face is on the other side.
What the fuck? Hey!
George runs off to chase it down, and when he opens the door, no one can be found. He goes and runs through the second door, and wouldn't you know it, we're back on the ride. This time, George has had enough. He immediately jumps out of the cart and starts throwing everything in sight. After getting some of his anger out, he gets back into the cart and endures the breakdown once again. He does make an attempt to push the cart during the malfunction. The lights all turn off, as if the ride is back up, yet nothing seems to be happening. George goes to that back door once more and bumps into the suit trying to go through the other door. He yanks it back, and it's not a person in the suit, but just an animatronic. He is finally able to go through that second door without winding up in a reset. George explores further and ends up in a room that looks eerily similar to the Fazbear restaurant. With a light at the end of the tunnel, George goes in closer and finds an open gated door just labeled Springtrap. I have a feeling you're not going to want to go down there.
Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
Before George can investigate any further, we can hear Vanessa scream out violently from the dark.
Why would anyone need a suit?
Holy shit! Vanessa!
George, being a true hero, runs in to help, but with quite the unexpected surprise.
Vanessa?
George hauls ass in the other direction, but this giant bear head is determined. Luckily, the doorway is too small for it to get through. No matter, however, since this black ooze starts to pour out of the mouth, and we can see something crawling its way out. Springtrap crawls out and is on the hunt. George tries to make his way out, but this time that door ain't budging. He finally manages to kick the door open, and this is where I start to question George's decision making. Why would you get back into the cart when sprinting would probably be way more effective? We're back at our drop section, and when we expect a reset, we get a shocking turn of events.
Not again. Wait. What? Now where the hell am I?
Looks like the ride might actually be over. If I was George, I would have hopped out and hauled ass immediately. George finally climbs out of the cart and goes to head for the exit, but someone else seems to have gotten there first. In another questionable decision, George runs back into the ride and, well, wouldn't you know? To end us off, we see the entrance of the ride with the cops at the scene. This is why you shouldn't have ran back into the ride, George. I gotta say, this was one of the most visually impressive animated horror shorts I have seen in a while. The graphics on everything were unbelievably realistic. Hell, even the people standing in line right at the beginning had me do a double take. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the behind the scenes video he made as well, since it goes really in depth and everything just looks so good. After doing some double checking, I did see that there is a whole playlist of other Five Nights videos he has done, and if those are canon to this entry, I may have to check those out as well. I really enjoyed how this took a very unique approach when it came to showing off this world. I like the idea that this being a horror ride gives the excuse to go all out with making the designs look extra terrifying. A fun theory to think about is the fact that since this ride somehow managed to repeat itself and break the bounds of time given what we see in the camera, perhaps George is the dead body Derek was talking about at the beginning. Obviously that could just be silly, especially if all the other Five Nights entries within this playlist have any connections to the horror attraction. It's very possible I went into this missing some very important context. The amount of work and effort displayed throughout the whole piece is very apparent, and I can't imagine how long it took to animate this. This almost feels like a FNAF variant of the Backrooms, with both the style of animation and just the setting we are bound to. An inescapable hellscape that seemingly goes on and on forever. Needless to say, this was certainly a wild experience, and I'm very glad I came for the ride. Get it?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
If you haven't already checked out the horror attraction, I highly recommend you do, as it really had me on my toes the whole time. I know this video was definitely on the shorter side, but still, if you made it all the way to the end, I thank you all for watching. Be sure to keep leaving recommendations down below. I always love seeing them, whether in the YouTube comments or the community Discord. But if you'll excuse me, I found a new ride that I'm planning to check out.